I'm amazed it took me this long just to make this deck. As you all know, if you are a long-time subscriber or a reader on TCG Player, I'm a massive Lightsworn fan. It was the deck I did the best with in, like Tier 3 events. It's been a deck that's been one of my go-tos. It was one of my best friends in high school's deck of choice, so it's kind of fun to remember all of the cool things he would do with it and kind of apply that in my own way. It's just a deck I like to play a lot. So when that Grasslook Screener hit 1 again, I think everybody that knew me expected me to play Lightsworn, and I haven't yet. So today, I wanted to show you the deck I took to locals last night. I went 3-1. My only loss was to Tenpai, who opened up double Mulcharmy game 1, which is actually the game that I won. They opened up Mulcharmy game 2, and my hand was Wolf, Felice, Droplet, Engraver, so I couldn't really do much with that. And then game 3, he opened up Shifter, and my hand was like all gas, but couldn't do anything into a Shifter, so that was unfortunate. But this deck has a very solid Yubel matchup, despite being all monster effects. It has a really good grind game. It's got a pretty decent matchup against Snake Eyes. It's overall not a terrible deck right now. It's one of those like all gas, no breaks kinds of decks, so it can be a little scary to play if you're not used to playing that kind of style of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where you're just watching your opponent get to play. But it's pretty solid, and I wanted to show you the build that I went with last night. As always, if you like this sort of content, let me know by going ahead and liking. Comment down below if you've been playing Lightsworn or any 60-card piles. And if this is something you want to see more of, go ahead and subscribe. But we're just going to jump right in. First with the 2 boss monsters, 1 Judgment Dragon, 1 Punishment Dragon. Now, generally, I'm not a big fan of boss monsters like this. However, I view Punishment Dragon as more of just like a generic extender in the deck, where you're literally resetting the game. And against decks like Yubel, which abuse the graveyard, that can be very crippling. You do have to remember that against Yubel, you are putting back their phantoms, which can be important, but usually you're going to grind out the game beyond where they're going to have like much of a hand, because they burn so much going into their first couple turns that you can usually outgrind them and then leave them with next to nothing or absolutely nothing in some cases. Judgment Dragon is much better when you're going second, of course, because of its effect being a board wipe. However, it is also really solid when you go first as the throwaway level 8 monster for your rank 8 plays, which does come up. So highly recommend playing each of these. Then for the Lightsworn monsters, we have 3 Dragonling, 3 Vice, 3 Felice, and 3 Wolf. So if you are, again, a longtime fan of the channel, you know I really don't like playing 6 bad draw Lightsworn monsters. They're just not cards I like playing. I typically only like to play Wolf because it is obviously better than Felice in that it works when it's sent by Foolish Burial and Charge the Light Brigade, and that Grasslook Screener. However, with a 60-card pile like this, and we're not playing Beast Warriors and stuff like the Zodiac deck I used to play, we needed to fill it out more. So Felice gained some agency there, as well as Minerva, the Athenian Lightsworn, making Felice a significantly better card. And then, of course, Vice being so easily searchable in the deck, thanks to the Fiendsmith Tract, as well as Charge, meaning that I have more access to ways to unbreak my hand. Originally, I was playing a single copy of Raiden as well. I had even considered Gareth because of how many cards I want to mill in this deck. But I found that they just weren't beneficial enough. They didn't do enough. They were often just kind of throwaways. So I figured if they were cards I wasn't going to be playing in the main combo anyway, and I didn't want to see most of the time, they should be cut. Then I am playing the Fiendsmith engine. 3 Engraver, 1 Lurie. I know that that is a very expensive engine, but it is really good in this deck. The synergy between Engraver, working with all the Light Fiends, and Vice being a Light Fiend is nothing short of incredible. This deck is still completely playable if you don't have the Fiendsmith engine. You can even just play Tract, like a single copy or 2 of Tract, just to search out Vice. That is completely reasonable. But I am a big fan of the Engraver engine in this deck because of the rank 6 access, as well as being able to put back copies of Vice for later on. Did come up a few times. Then I'm also playing a ton of Bestials. This is actually basically your non-engine. So there's 3 Lubellion, 3 Saronir, 2 Druid Worm, 1 Baldrake, and 1 Magnemite. So you do have a ton of Bestials here. You've got 7 regular ones, and then the 3 Lubellions as well. This is part of the reason why I think this deck is actually really solid right now, is that with Ubel being represented as the top deck of the format, Bestials gain a lot of equity, and being able to use them in your engine is obviously going to be really good, but being able to play so many makes this deck even better. There is an argument to maybe playing like a second Baldrake or a third Druid Worm if you found other cards you wanted to cut, but I found other non-engine I found to be more beneficial. But these are really good. These honestly won me a ton of games. Even into matchups where they didn't necessarily shine, like Tenpai, when you're milling so much of their deck and you hit those key shifters and stuff and you banish them, and then you can just banish them off of the Bestials themselves and not have to banish your cards, which can be really good. The last set of monsters, I played the Horus package, so 3 City, 1 Happy. These were really solid, again, just for rank 8s, and also just being big monsters. This deck is as extra deck intensive as it is. Turn 2, a lot of the times, you'll just start attacking them with the big monsters that you have in your deck, which can be really funny to see because it switches to just like a straight up old school beatdown deck where you're just attacking them with your big monsters, like Judgment Dragon, Punishment Dragon, the Bestials all being 25, and then City and Happy being 3,024 respectively. A lot of times games will come down to a point where, like, if you go first, you'll do your combo, you'll burn a ton of resources in their stuff. You have your Punishment Dragon as a reset button, but you also just have these lingering in the graveyard, so there's so many threats that they kind of just get overwhelmed. But I really liked these a lot, and they were also really good at protecting that Grasslook Screener in their own way, because City is such tempting ash bait that a lot of the times that they'll take it, or you've got like your Engraver combo, which can be ash bait and stuff like that. There's a lot of ways, and I'll discuss that in a second, that you actually basically force them to use their hand traps before you use that Grasslook Screener. And then the last 2 monsters were the 2 Shufflers, Mudora and Keldo. They're just good cards. There's really not much to say there. They're basically just non-engine. For the rest of the deck, we have 3 Left Arm Offering and that Grasslook Screener. No Thrust. I don't own it, but even if I owned it, I don't know that I would necessarily play it. I never actually wanted, when I was going second, to thrust for a copy of Grasslook Screener. One really interesting thing that came up that I realized after the fact that I like more now with this deck than I did even with the old Lightsworn deck is that Punishment Dragon basically makes Left Arm Offering free, in that like you're gonna banish just like the last 2 cards in your hand usually, and if you can just summon this afterwards or before, and then you just get to shuffle everything back, you don't care that you lost your hand because it's all back in your deck as a resource. The thing with these cards here is that this is the last thing I'm ever going to do in the turn, if I can avoid doing it, if I can. Like, this is your last resort button, and most of the time, you're really not even ever looking to actually activate that Grasslook Screener. You're looking to just do everything else first, burn through a bunch of your deck, and then if you really need a Left Arm Offering, there were more times I would left arm for like a Charge the Light Brigade or something like that than that Grasslook Screener. So it's interesting because I think a lot of people think that this is bait, like it's like a trap where they're like, oh, you only have 1 copy, but it's really just there to be a win button after everything else. Like if you've used City and then your Fiendsmith engine and stuff like that, you're only going to have maybe 45 to 48 cards left in your deck anyway, and they'll have like 35 if you went first and they're playing 40. So you'll only mill like 10, 12 cards usually, and it's not a big deal. But it is there. It's there to have as like a solid win button. I actually really like Left Arm Offering in this deck a lot, being able to banish cards, which sets it up for your Branded Regained, which I will actually show now. It also sets up, things up for your Bestial Dispatter and your Punishment Dragon and things like that. So there's actually a lot of really cool synergy there. And then I play the 3 charge Light Brigade, of course, 3 Solar Recharge. Of course, you play like a million Lightsworns, so you have to. 2 King Sark, 3 Fiendsmith Tracked. This is one of the reasons why I actually really like this deck, is because it's very consistent. Because you have Tracked, you have Charge, you have Chaos Space, like you have a ton of consistency cards. You have Engraver, Imseti, like all these cards that are going to force out all of these interactions before you ever even get to your that grassland screener play, or just really start committing to the field in general. So there's those, and then I also played Fiendsmith Sanct. This is a card I'm a big fan of personally. I think Sanct is crazy. If you control no face-up monsters or only light fiends, you can special summon a token. It's light fiend level 1/0/0. And then you can't declare attacks for the rest of the turn except fiend monsters, which doesn't matter. If a Fiendsmith monster dies by card effect, you can set this from your grave. That, again, doesn't matter. It's really just that it is a another card you can search off of Engraver. And it's also another card that you can draw to start your entire Engraver line, which can then bridge into everything else. And then the rest of the cards in the deck, because we're not quite done yet still. 3 Triple Tactics Talent. 3 Forbidden Droplet, and then 1 copy of that Black Goat the Black Goat Laughs, and 1 copy of Fiendsmith in Paradise. Actually, both of these were last second editions. Originally, I was playing a second Regained and a Raiden over these two, and I cut them because I wanted to see how these would do. Fiendsmith in Paradise never came up, but in theory, it's really solid, just as a way, like, when your opponent special summons, you can banish this, send Desiree, and then Desiree put back a card, and then send that monster to the grave, which is really cool. The Black Goat Laughs overperformed. It's one of those cards I think I'm going to probably bump up to 2, maybe even 3. But you'll notice that there's 8 non-engine there, and then if you count 9, 10, and then you have your 7 Bestials there, so you have 17 non-engine, which is actually a very reasonable number to have in a 60-card deck. Like, that's a lot. So you're going to see a decent amount of non-engine that also, in some cases, can double up as engine. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't feel too bad going second with this deck, is because a lot of the time I don't mind sitting there watching as you're doing most of your play, as long as I can get to my turn. So that was the main deck, 60 cards. The extra deck, you've got 1 Desiree, and then 1 Necroquip Princess. I could be playing Aerial Eater. That is a completely reasonable card that I actually really wanted to play. However, I couldn't find room. And honestly, you have so many ways to send Vice anyway, and to get Engraver into the graveyard. The only thing I wanted to do was to send Chaos Betrayer, which is a level 6 Dark Fiend that says if it's in the graveyard, you can banish a light and a dark from your graveyard to special summon it. At least I think that's what it says. It special summons itself from the graveyard by banishing a light and dark, and then it gets banished, but then you can just overlay into a rank 6. That was the idea, but never came up, so I just started doing these two as just like link climb bodies and just generic. Like, your end board is very flexible, and it's kind of just there. Like, it doesn't look intimidating, but then it's the follow-up that's the problem. I played Dispatter, never once summoned it, so this could probably get cut, honestly. Minerva, Omega. Summon Minerva basically every game. Omega came up a decent amount. Little Minerva, she comes up a fairly decent amount. I think that this card is actually a lot better than it's given credit for, and I think that it should probably be played more than it is, honestly. Like, I found myself wanting to summon it more often than I did. Wave King, High Caesar. Pilgrim Reaper, this card was crazy. It's just another set of mills in the deck. This one lets you mill 5, which is really solid. Because between the Pilgrim Reaper milling 5, the Minerva milling 4, and then your Zombie Vampire milling another 4, that's 13 right there. And then you have like your charges and your charges, like you're ripping through your deck. So that's why I'm saying that Grassland Screener doesn't really matter all that much in the deck. You are going to see most of your cards anyway. But Pilgrim Reaper overperformed. Zombie Vampire was really solid. Galaxy Ice Photon Lord was really solid. That was usually a part of my end board if I could make it. Ideally, your end board would be something like Desiree, IP, Photon Lord with a Regained and a loaded graveyard. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually just ends up being really pretty crushing. And then for links, you have Requiem, Moon, Sequence, IP, and SP. yeah, these were all really solid. I think all these came up a decent amount. Even Moon, which I originally wasn't going to play because of how easy it is to get to Light Fiends, I ended up playing Moon just to have as a random throwaway link too, to bridge into other stuff. Like, I wanted to have the throwaway link too for SP mostly, but it also just meant that drawing just any two monsters, like literally any two, like Imseti and then going Imseti Happy can go into your Fiendsmith combo, which can then, you know, bridge into other stuff. That was the extra deck. That's super up in the air. It kind of just changes based on what you're trying to do with the deck. Then I played, for the side deck, 3 Nibiru, 3 Phantasme, 3 Mulcher Army Perulia, 2 Lightning Storm, Duster, and 3 evenly matched. So you'll notice it is 9 breakers, basically, and then 6 draw cards. The thing with this deck is, like any 60-card deck, you are not going to see a lot of your side deck, so I think that is where the Phantasmes and Perulias really come in, because you need to try to see as many cards as you can. Unfortunately, your deck is so dense with cards that often playing cards like Ash Blossom and Veilers and things like that just doesn't work. You'd have to play like next to, I think, 20 you would have to play in order to see 2 reasonably consistently. So at that point, like, there's just no reason to do that. This is an all gas deck, so we don't really need that. And these also help give you more gas. And then these are obviously really good going second. So that was the deck. Let me know down below what you want to see. If you want to see me do some test hands or something, let me know. Like I said, this is just a fun deck that I've been having. I had a blast playing. It was great to sleeve up my Lightsworn cards again for the first time in months. If you want to see my Fiend Link deck as well, let me know down below. That's going to be a Musket, Unchained, Fiendsmith pile. It's the deck I've been playing as well recently. Yeah, let me know down below what you want to see. And until next time, have a good one.